Hello, crafty friends. My name is Jessica, and here we turn blank canvases into handmade magic. So let's get started. Today we're going to be recreating this card panel using a different color scheme, all because I created it and actually really loved it. But I'm also a part of a hop with a few of my crafty besties where we're featuring a new brand every month just to showcase all of the great different companies and brands that are out there. So this is our first month posting and we're doing Kristina Werner with Concord and Ninth. These are the colors I'm going to be using. And then we're going to go ahead and get started with doing the stenciling. I start with the background portion of the stencil, and I can't talk about stenciling or ink blending without talking about my favorite paper. I, for the most part, exclusively use Says Stamp 130-pound cardstock. It is super smooth. I love the tone of the white if you're going to be leaving some of the white space. So it is my all-time favorite. The ink blends beautifully on it and dries back great. So because this is a larger stencil, I don't have a grip mat that can support using this large of a size. So the way I kind of like to do it, and I don't have any low tack tape right now, so I do have scotch. We just had the holidays, so wrapping gifts was really, popular a month ago. So what I did is I used a little bit of scotch tape and put that on the back of the stencil. This works really well. I do not get any movement. You do see there that I am holding it down. That's probably just to give me a little bit more stability here. I'm keeping my fingers off of the white if possible because sometimes oil can create your ink blends to not look the most smooth. But this works great. I use that scotch tape, that same scotch tape all throughout the whole entire ink blending. So it works good. You just have to be a little bit careful when you're pulling it off. So we're getting started with this trio from Simon Says Stamp. This is one of the more royal blues that they have in their line. I really, really loved this kind of dusky blue sunset, kind of not quite full night, still kind of holding on a little bit to the sunlight right before it dips down. And I thought that was kind of the vision I was going for, where maybe the other one is more of a sunrise. We're kind of getting that beautiful, well, maybe it's still a little bit more of a sunset, but we've got more of that red tonality where this one's a little bit more of that deeper blue. I used all three colors, starting with the lightest at the top and then moved down to the darkest. Really love these Simon Says Stamp inks. I use them exclusively, other than I do have Distress Oxides and Distress ink in my craft room, but for the most part, I am all in with Simon Says Stamp Positively Saturated inks. I've really just loved getting to know these inks over the past couple of years, and I just love the way that they blend. They've got a really great color scheme palette to them, but I have every single one because I have full set syndrome and I just love the options that they offer. For the leaves, I wanted to do still use all three colors. So I'm going to go in with the lightest, then we're going to get a little brush and add a little bit more depth here with that second more mid-tone color. Really love this, of course, this trio. This is like the pool green blues, but a little bit more dusky royal. I don't know what the right word is, but a little bit more royal is kind of where I'm leaning, where the color's not so bright, a little bit more dark toned, heavier with probably like the black tonality to them a little bit. So we're going to go ahead and layer them all up. One of the things I really love about Kristina Werner's line are her stencils. They are extremely durable. I don't want to say thick because they can still blend over them and I don't feel like you get a lot of white. Sometimes if stencils are too thick, you can't get your color everywhere that you need to, but they are extremely durable. So that previous one was a little bit more fine lined, and there is another fine lined one in this set where if you just wanted to do a whole panel in one color that does the white around everything, where I would consider it a little bit more dainty. But it's not dainty because the stencil just has so much durability to it that it doesn't want to move when you're blending. Sometimes when you get those really like latticey kind of ones, they want to move a lot. Or you'll have to use a pixie spray or some kind of adhesive on the back, and I do not have to use that with Christina stencils with Concord and Ninth. They're absolutely dreamy, probably my favorite on the market just because of how robust they are. So what goes really well with blues are orange. They're complementary colors. So I grabbed some peachy tones, a little bit more of an orangey peachy. I did the pinky peachies on the other panel, so we're doing the more orangey kind of colors here with an added little bonus of the pink, and you'll see that here in a little bit. But we're just using two tones for the florals, a light one and then adding the darkness around the center of the petals. And then what I did is I took the other floral one and we're going to use the darkest color of that orange trio. And then of course I'm adding that peony pink. I really love this really deep orangey, bright orange color with this peony pink. It gives me Barbie vibes, kind of that beautiful color combo of the pink and the orange. And I really love this on the florals. It also could do really well with like plumeria or hibiscus. I think these are really great tropical colors in the Simon Says Stamp line. So I do use Simon Says Stamp brushes. I absolutely love them. I have them in all three different sizes. You're going to see that I'm using the bigger ones here, and then of course this medium-sized one. I just use this microfiber cloth to clean in between each color. When I'm using a lighter colored tone family, I just make sure I really wipe that brush off really good. Sometimes I'll take a scrap piece of paper and kind of see what color's on it after I've kind of given it a good wash with the cloth, just to make sure that I've gotten all the tones off before I dive into that lighter color. I only have one of each color family. Some people have a darker toned one and a lighter toned one, but at this time I'm making it work with just the original set of the brushes and just making sure that I clean them off in between. So here's the panels that we have. The one with the pinky kind of background is one I made previously, and then the one we just finished here today. Kristina's stencils, I know I've already talked about how great they are, but I love that they're this larger size because you're going to get two panels out of it. So we are making 4 cards today. They are going to be very similar to each other. We're going to have one of each style in each of the backgrounds, just so that you can see how I build these larger stencils and how I kind of move through this process. So I went ahead and used some of her large greetings, and off camera I did build some of them, but this one here I'm showing you, I do use 3 white layers before I add it to my gold layer, and I'm using my handy dandy stamping blocks to get the job done with putting pressure on those die cuts. Now we're going to go ahead and score all of our card bases. I use accent opaque white cardstock for all of my card bases. It is 100 pounds. You can find it on Amazon, really inexpensive. I actually like it better than Nina only because it's more of a brighter white. Nina Classic Crest has a little bit more of a warm tone when you're comparing them. So that's why I like this one. It's definitely more white, especially if I'm using the card base as creating kind of like a white border, which I'm not doing here today, but I do often in card making. So I did decide that we're going to go ahead and use the full panel. I did not trim them down, and I am using liquid glue to adhere them. The Simon Says Stamp 130-pound cardstock, of course, is very thick. You could use roller tape. I feel like I kind of bounce back and forth between each one, but I did decide to use the liquid glue here today just to give it a little bit more of a solid adhesion on that card base. Using that handy dandy block to create pressure and go ahead and adhere those panels together. Now I went ahead and cut out a gold frame. I cut out 2 of them. And like I said earlier, we're going to make one of each styled background similar with each other. So for this one, we're going to do this gold frame. It is very delicate. You can see I'm holding it there like it's a precious little item in my craft room. I don't want to make it stretched out or anything. And we're going to use the blocks to adhere them down. And then for the other ones, I knew I wanted to do a large gold band, but we're going to kind of play it up a little bit. Just going to adhere these sentiments down with glue, kind of keeping the same little theme, using that T-ruler to get them straight. And then I kind of kept the 2 lined sentiments on the same card panel, and then I left the single line sentiments for the other ones. So we're going to just look at this. This is my fiddly portion of the video, trying to figure out where I want this, how I want this to kind of lay on this card panel. And I decided to go for this diagonal across the panel kind of layout. I really wanted to mix it up. I tend to be somebody who does a little bit more straight, so why not? We'll do a little diagonal using the previous one underneath to get the other one lined up, and then we're going to go ahead and use some liquid glue to adhere them. I really love that we've gotten now two very different cards with the same exact background. That's the great thing about these stencils, and I just really love, I can't stress it enough, I just really love the size of them and the freedom to be able to play around and still have two cards in the end. Now I got a little extra glue here, so I used my T-ruler to go ahead and pry that apart. It had kind of glued together. And one of the tricks I like for metallic cardstock in general is using a gum eraser to go ahead and get that excess glue off. It works beautifully and it doesn't mar the metallic cardstock. So of course, I'm going to go ahead and finish up these cards with some little embellishments. I did cut these florals out and then decided I didn't like the way they looked. So we went ahead and grabbed some gold coins. Go ahead and we're going to use the same exact layout. We're going to make it super easy just so we don't have to overcomplicate these cards. And we've got now 4 cards in just a matter of, I think 45 minutes is what it took for me to create these. So go ahead and glue these cards down, and that's the card for today. Thank you so much for watching. From a blank canvas to handmade magic, I hope this project inspired you. Don't forget to like the video and subscribe, and I'll see you in the next creative session. Happy crafting!